We have an interesting week full of planetary transit. In this week's astrology, there's a new moon in Virgo that can help us begin the process of getting our act together. Mars is entering Cancer this week and will be there on and off until April 2025 in preparation for its retrograde cycle. Yes, I did say retrograde. And Saturn reaches its halfway point in its regressive phase, causing us to feel like we're at a turning point regarding stability. Since we have kind of a weird week, the vibes on the graph are all over the place. From the 2nd to the 3rd, solitude's going to intersect psychic vibes, romance, mental tenors, and a smidge of social energy. And this is due to the edgy tones that we have going on throughout this entire week. So we might feel more susceptible to other people's vibes, especially with that psychic energy, causing us to want some space to ourselves. It's a week of picking up weird things. More or less, we'll feel more extrasensory than typical. But with that, we have that mental energy that's going to have us in our heads and trying to solve problems and analyze what might be going on in our lives, on top of a little bit of social energy mixed in with all that and romance vibes. So we might feel like our moods are fluctuating over those first few days. And then when we get to the 6th to the 8th, more solitude vibes are going to be present with mental energy and more romantic tone. With energy like this that's coming up over the weekend, relationship issues may feel more pronounced, causing us to feel the need to assess our situations and possibly make alterations to situations that have become too stifled, which is also not recommended with the energy that's coming up on the 8th with Venus Sesquiquadrate Uranus, and that's where some of that stuff is popping up. But yeah, we're in for another odd week. Let's look at these next bunch of days and see what we can expect. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps this channel grow. Also, if you're looking for a natal chart reading or intuitive coaching, the links will be in the description box below. And if you'd like to support the work of this channel, you could do so by buying me a fresh cup of coffee. The link will be in the description box below as well. So on Monday, we're going to have that new moon in Virgo, which of course I've already made a separate podcast for, and by the time you guys are seeing this weekly video on YouTube, it should already be up by now. But another interesting thing that's happening this week, as we get to the 4th, Mars is entering Cancer for an extended period of time due to its retrograde cycle. So Wednesday brings in a new sign change and also a whole bunch of other things with it. Typically Mars stays in a sign for about a good 6 weeks, but when we have the retrograde cycles, it'll stay in a sign for a good 7 months. This one is a little bit different because it'll be on and off since this retrograde is going to happen in Cancer and in the first 6 degrees of Leo. So this planet's going to be in Cancer until November 4th, then enter Leo for 2 months, then it will retrograde back to Cancer on January 6, 2025, and then finally leave Cancer on April 17th, 2025. And one more thing to note about this cycle, which is also going to be interesting, this Mars retrograde is going to be in tandem with Mercury retrograde and also the Venus retrograde that's happening around March. Mars will be direct by that point in time, but still in its shadow period, so it's going to dredge up some interesting themes. So of course, I'll talk about all of these thoroughly once we get to the Mars retrograde cycle and those other cycles that are coming up around the Mars retrograde. So we're in for some interesting times as we start wrapping up 2024. But for right now, at least we get Mars in Cancer in its regular format for about a month. So October 4th is the pre-shadow for the Mars retrograde. So we've got a good 4 weeks before this starts turning into retrograde territory and we're starting to reevaluate some of the whole Mars and Cancer themes that are going to come up during the regressive cycle. And another thing to note, Mars going into Cancer is not its most comfortable place to be. Mars happens to be in a condition called fall when it's paired with Cancer. And what that means is, in astrology, we have a system called essential dignities, and it's a way of matching up planets with signs. Some pairings work well together, while others may run into some snags here and there. And with this pairing, Capricorn happens to be exalted in Mars. And so it's the opposite of Cancer, and this is why there tends to be issues when it goes into Cancer. Also, Aries has an opposite motivation. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars's energy is an opposite motivation of Cancer. Cancer is about our personal lives, our domestic side, comfort, nurturing, emotional security. And this energy promotes a more reflective approach, something that's more thoughtful and thinking of others. Whereas Aries energy, Mars energy, is about self-motivation. It's about going after what we desire. It's about channeling our inner gladiator, seeking victory, living a busy life, and not letting anyone stop us. In other words, not being bogged down by other people's needs. Also, it's not the most reflective planet. It's about taking immediate action regardless of feelings and regardless of thinking it through. So paired with Cancer, it can run into some snags. But this does not mean that this doesn't work. This does not mean that there isn't positive qualities to this. As a matter of fact, it has a lot of good things that we can truly utilize to our advantage. So even though it's got this condition, it's a very beneficial transit to go through. So hear me out. One of the things that Mars represents is enthusiasm and taking action. And so when it's paired in Cancer, we're going to take action on Cancerian things. And the thing about this is it's generally surrounding the home. It's generally surrounding our personal life, our emotional needs, those things that are absolutely important and not exactly glorified by our society. I know that the whole thing about being ambitious about your career and your finances and going on wild adventures is the thing that everyone is always seeking when they're talking about their goals. And while those things are crucial, it's also important to have personal life objectives as well. And if that's something that's been on the back burner for you in the back of your mind, something that you really would like to focus on a little bit more, then Mars in Cancer has you absolutely covered. Under this influence, we can feel more compelled to exert our energy into the home. So it could feel like a time where we're taking action on private matters, improving our relationships, chasing emotional stability, leaning into our domestic side, leaning into our healthily protective side, because of course there is always a lower vibration to all of this, but ensuring emotional satisfaction is really crucial, and we'll feel more motivated than typical in this energy to do so. With a vibe like this, we can find ourselves fighting for a better environment in terms of our home. So through this phase, whatever might be creating opposing factors in our home, creating combative situations, quarreling situations, this may be a time where we're looking for ways to live in better cohabitation. And even if it's not something that's chaotic, we can find ourselves taking action to foster a better environment, promote better relationships, well-being, stability, and emotional security within our home. With Cancerian energy, we deal with the past, we deal with generational stuff. So some of this could be cutting through a lot of unnecessary baggage and bullshit from the past that has left us feeling off kilter. Maybe this is a time where we're wanting to break old patterns, generational patterns, and any familial patterns that have been building up in our system that we need to let go of at this point. If it's not some of that stuff, it could be a time where we're actually just taking action with our family by doing more activities with relatives or friends who feel like relatives, or anyone that you share space with. This could be a roommate that feels like a sibling. This could be a spouse. But overall, the urge to spend more time with these people feel more ramped up than typical under this energy. Coming back to the past energies, one of the things with Cancerian energy is it rules nostalgia and sentimental things. So we might feel more driven than typical to seek those things out. Sometimes it could be a passion for history that we're going after. Maybe we just haven't had a time to really study that stuff or research that stuff, but it could be a time of going back to that. It could be a time of visiting an archive. It could be a time of relaxing and getting lost in documentaries or doing something active, because we are talking about Mars here. And even if it's in Cancer, there's still activity going on in this. And this could look like going thrifting and antique shopping, other activities to deal with vintage stuff, or going to like a revisiting of something. A revisiting of something could be like a Renaissance fair or one of those Victorian fairs. But either way, if you're into nostalgia, this is the perfect energy to lean into that. And that urge will be more keyed up than typical. Another thing with Mars is it rules our bedroom stamina. And so intimacy and sex can take a more passionate and emotional turn in this energy than it would in one of the other signs that's a little more cerebral, like we had in Gemini. So instead of sex being a sport or just matter of fact, this could be a time of being more receptive to other people's feelings, taking on a more romantic approach rather than just the quick and dirty, and also considering the partner's feelings and what they want, rather than just thinking about our own needs. But with any sign change, there's a lower vibration, as there is anytime a planet changes zodiac placements, and this is no different. Even with it being in its fall position, there is such a good side to this pairing. At the same time, yeah, it's in its fall position, so a lot of the lower vibrational stuff is going to feel more revved up than typical. Cancer rules the past, as I was saying earlier, and one of the things I was saying saying about things being stored up in your system from the past, whether that be familial stuff, baggage, and other things, can really get drudged up in this energy in a very pressure cookery sort of way. And so if you have any past emotions that you haven't dealt with, past resentment, holding on to anger, harboring certain feelings about something, some of that can come out sideways in this energy. An energy like this could make us feel raw and easily triggered by things, and so it's very effortless to get into an argumentative sort of mood. Speaking of moods, Cancer deals with our moods, Mars deals with our temper, and so a combination like this can really have a hair trigger to it. Cancer also deals with fluctuation since it's ruled by the moon and the lunar phases, and so our moods may ebb and flow in this energy. Our temper may ebb and flow in this energy. Also, Mars deals with our energy levels, our vitality, and so that may fluctuate in this energy as well. Vibes like this can also exacerbate any issues on the domestic front. So familial disputes and anything to do with the home can get more drudged up in this energy as well, especially with bottled up emotions that have been brewing for a while that need to be addressed, or problems with dealing with, things on the domestic front with family or other situations where people are trying to save face may end up coming out sideways in this energy. And that protective side I was talking about earlier, there's certainly nothing wrong with being protective of your loved ones. At the same time, there's a slippery slope in this energy where it can seem controlling. That tends to backfire in this energy and lead to situations where either you're feeling smothered or the other person is feeling smothered by this. So it's something to be aware of in this energy. And keep in mind, we're going to have this energy for quite a bit, and it's going to go retrograde. And so all of these themes, the higher expressions and the lower expressions, are going to come back up, and we're going to be dealing with that. And then also, once we get to the Leo portion around November 4th, when Mars goes into Leo, I'll talk more about that as well. So we've got an interesting blending coming up for this retrograde. One of the other things that's going to come up here is a lot of contacts with Pluto during this retrograde period. And just as Mars is entering Cancer, it's making a quincunx with Pluto, giving us our first taste of what's to come. Mars is going to be locked in an opposition during its retrograde with Pluto, with some varying degrees as it's going in and out of retrograde. More so when Mars is in the Cancerian period is when we're going to see those oppositions, which is going to hit 3 times. But for right now, in this regular format energy, we're having that quincunx with Pluto. And so this can rev up tempers. Quincunxes show us where we lack awareness. It's where we have blind spots about our behavior and certain conduct that's not okay. So this can feel like a day where we need to address that unconstructive conduct and behavior that's going on in our lives. This could manifest through working on anger, control issues, abrasiveness, petty conduct, jealousy, and the need to even the score when you're feeling slighted. Also, it could be a day of addressing long-standing compulsions and fixations and other unhealthy situations, coping skills, and repression that we're not dealing with. Sunday happens to be a very colorful day full of planetary transits because we've got the Sun making an opposition with Saturn, we've got Mercury in a quincunx to Neptune, and we have Venus in a Sesquiquadrate to Uranus. And right before the Sun makes its opposition with Saturn, it's going to Sesquiquad Pluto, and so this can rev up ego issues where we're dealing with people who have strong personalities, people who feel like they need to talk over others or dominate others. So it's a day where people are unconstructively expressing their personalities, leading to a lot of tension and just egomaniac behavior. Then on Sunday, the Sun's going to make its annual opposition with Saturn, and this marks the halfway point of the Saturn retrograde. So this is essentially like full moon energy. Anytime the outer planets, including Mars, are in retrograde and make an opposition with the Sun, it marks they're almost done with the retrograde part. So we are halfway finished with this. It's a midpoint. It's a peak period for the retrograde energy. And what it does is it revs up that energy to an intensified level, causing it to feel like a turning point energy. So because we're dealing with the Saturnian energy in a complex aspect to the Sun, this can really dredge up some sobering feelings. So it can bring on a caustic tone to it. It may be a day where we are feeling demotivated just because of this. We're feeling possibly lonely or emotionally numb. A transit like this can be really gloomy because it does serve as reality checks, especially if we've maybe slacked on certain work that we've been doing, especially when it comes down to stuff with our ego, where we seek approval from others and that outward confidence rather than building up internal confidence and stability. Sometimes we could just feel deflated about situations that are no longer working and we're knowing that we need to make changes. It's a day of confronting reality. It's a day of setting limits. It's a day of seeing where we're at in terms of our maturity, stability. Are we taking responsibility? Are we taking too much responsibility? And or are we taking accountability for things? But energy like this gives us that pause where we need to reevaluate how much effort and energy we're putting into things, especially things that need to be worked on or overcoming obstacles and challenges and scenarios that waste our time. So it's not the most comfortable sunshine and rainbow sort of energy at all. It's definitely not going to give us that unicorns and glitter feeling. However, when it comes to Saturn, if we've been doing the work that we need to, we do reap the rewards at the end of it. So if you've been really putting in a lot of time and hard work in something that's worth your time, know that it does pay off within this energy. Continuing with the 8th, Mercury's making a quincunx with Neptune, and so this can show us where we have poor communication due to unconscious pattern. One of the ways this can manifest is through misunderstandings. Sometimes we don't take the time to really stop and listen to people, and so this energy can show us where we might lack that sort of focus in ourselves. And what happens when we misinterpret is it leads to misunderstandings with others or getting irritable because, again, we didn't understand what that person said. So an energy like this shows where we distort dialogue from others and why we might need to work on active listening skills. And it's very easy in this energy to get offended by things because we didn't understand what was going on and react irrationally and say the wrong thing due to all the confusion and things like that. So something else to watch out for. Also, this may call to our attention where we need to start grounding ourselves spiritually. Maybe we pick up on other people's vibes and it's making us feel shaky or like these attitudes or feelings that we're feeling are our own and it's stifling us in some sort of way. So energetically, this could be a time to learn to work on that and to keep your energy grounded, especially if you're one of those people that's receptive to things and extrasensory stuff, even paranormal stuff. So it's a time to really get mindful and grounded about these things. And on top of that, as if we need any more confusion or weird energy, Venus is making a Sesquiquadrate to Uranus, which can drudge up shock value behavior in relationships. So some of the ways this can manifest is doing odd things to get a reaction out of a partner or a close relationship and that sort of thing. It can really rev up excitement-seeking behavior. When you have Venus and Uranus together in a hard aspect, a lot of the times if we felt stifled or bored or stuck in something, we tend to want to shake things up. However, it doesn't come out constructive when we're dealing with a difficult alignment. And so this can come out sideways in this energy because we're looking to get our kicks off and maybe a partner is not receptive. Maybe the people in our lives are not receptive. And so we need to be careful not to seek things for the sake of novelty because we're feeling like the grass is greener on the other side within this energy, or again, just doing things that are outrageous. And also we need to be aware of getting risky when it comes down to money. So anything that seems like it's too good to be true, especially with the Mercury Neptune quincunx going on and that Sun opposed Saturn situation, just really be mindful with energy like this because, you know, it's an energy where if we take one wrong turn, there's some consequences. I will say the consequences come more so from this alignment, but also the Sun opposed Saturn brings in consequences a lot of the time. So it's something that we really want to watch out for and everything. So let's not make any sudden moves or create sudden upheaval in our lives or our financial situations because it really can create havoc. And so yeah, what a week. I feel like I've been saying that for weeks now, considering how August has gone. At least September is somewhat quiet compared, but the opening week of September has some sting to the air. So let's try to be as constructive as we possibly can. Anyway, I hope you all have the best week ever. Later, and see you in the next episode.